Hello, everybody. Uh, it helps to be logged in when you're streaming a thing. Bueno. Okay. Hi. Got it. Just gonna test audio. Okay. Hi. Good. Okay. Um, I'm gonna be finally recording episode 50 for the third time, and hopefully for the last time, because there's finally content to talk about. I'm going to focus mainly on the Diablo stuff. But I do want to also call out that there is, or are, some PoE events coming up. And why is that? There we go. Here's some Path of Exile events that are coming up, and I will talk about those briefly. Okay, so I'm glad I wasn't recording at that point. Okay. So we're gonna go. Let's start. I don't know. I'll start with the Diablo stuff. Okay. Yeah. Good. We start with Diablo. All right. And 3. Wait. Just gotta select the right one. 3, 2, 1, and hello and welcome to the Near Death Experience Podcast, episode 50. This has been a long time coming, and honestly, I've recorded this 3 times so far. I tried to stream it once, and it turned into a babbly mess. I tried again offline, and I didn't really like the tone of it. And honestly, I did not think that this episode would cause me so much grief. But we have more information, and I'm just going to call it information on Diablo 4. And there's a lot of notes, but I'm sure you're going to realize very shortly that there isn't a lot of information for the amount of talking that they did during this particular developer update and live stream. I don't think that some of it was very well represented, and I'm going to go through some stuff that may sound familiar and really cause you to ask yourself, like, who did they think their audience was? There's going to be a lot of familiar mechanics. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes up. But there's also going to be some changes to what we're used to, and I'll really want to focus on those more, but I will call out like everything else. So getting into it, we have Diablo 4 beta dates. I don't think I need to announce those. However, there's 2 distinct betas. There's going to be a part 1 sort of closed beta for people who pre-ordered, and that is going to start March 17th. It'll be about 3 days, and then there's another one on March 24th, and that's going to be about the same time, 3 days. They're going to split this beta up into two distinct things, so they're not releasing all 5 classes in beta all at once, which I thought was weird. They're going to be going 3 classes and then 2 classes. So you'll have Barb, Rogue, and Sorceress at first, and then all 5 classes when the open beta commences, and your progress during this beta is going to carry over from beta to beta. So basically, if you got into the early closed beta, you're going to have an advantage, basically, over everyone else. And there's going to be a title given out and a pet that, well, not a pet, a back attachment, as I guess you would call it in Path of Exile, where you'll be able to equip it, and it's this nice little wolf cub sleeping in a little basket on your back. So, things I want to call out immediately. These betas are short. They really harken back to what happened in Diablo 3, where they're only showing you the first part of the game. And I'm worried about this. There's supposed to be 5 zones. We're only getting access to 1. The beta pet is gained after getting any one character to level 20. We're going to have access to only one world boss. That's Ashava. That is going to be at level 25. They seem to think this is going to be some sort of stress test, but as we know, not everyone likes beta content. That's going to be for only a certain portion of the audience, so they'll have to do something like extrapolate based on, we had 1,000 people on our servers trying to get through the door at once. Maybe there'll be, I don't know, just picking easy numbers here, maybe there'll be double that when we ship, or whatever the case may be. But I still don't think that this is going to return them the real results that they want. Analyzing things like early game balance aren't really that impactful, especially when you get into end game activities, because it ends up being such a small portion of your gameplay, and you don't spend much time there, even though they want to keep stressing that it's a big world, there's a lot of stuff to interact with, there's lots of content. But in the grand scheme of things, if I'm playing a game for 1,000 hours, I may only spend, if I have to go through the campaign every single time to level up a character, maybe less than 100, and 90% of my time or more, maybe call it 95, is spent doing endgame activities, whatever those may be, like dungeons and, what have you, if there's boss target farming, which I think there might be. But my point is, I don't think it's a really valid thing to call this an actual stress test when all you're doing is, drip feeding what you think you want people to see and what you feel is relevant, but you're not showing the true colors of the product and not really actually getting into the meat and potatoes, as it were, of everything that people want to see and want to experience and, really get their hands on. There's been so much talk about like the visual stuff and everything, but if you're not going to show that, what exactly is the point? Right? Like, what exactly are you aiming for when, you're only going to comparatively, again, drawing back to the Diablo 3 beta, you're only going to let me get to a low level cap and see the first boss, which in D3 was a Skeleton King. So, that's not, again, a real reflection of the actual product. It's just, here's what we chose to show you. And this is kind of what you'll get until we, teehee, tell you more. Which is really the vibe I got from all this. And I don't like it. I quite frankly think it's kind of disrespectful. If you want to call players like smart and inventive, give us the basis of all of these things. And I'm going to get into kind of what I mean with the rest of it, because they did talk about certain systems, but some of it was what they refer to as a deep dive, but it's not really a deep dive. It's just like an introduction to what it means to have this system in place. But again, no real long-term reflection of armor, which is the big thing they talked about. So, getting into there, we heard that the basic slots for attaining armor are going to be the classic helm, gloves, feet, chest, and pants. The chest and pants are going to be the highest sources of armor. So, again, don't know what numbers those represent. We do know that there's an item power similar, I guess, to item level, based on the power of the monster that dropped it. I guess that's an equivalent system. There's going to be basically like a tooltip arrow that says, hey, this is better than the other thing that you got. And I'm not sure if that's just going to be a sort of Zergfest on items where, especially in Diablo 3, if you find something that has the green upward arrow, you're equipping it because it's more damage, and you're just looking for more damage and more damage just to be able to get through the content, and it makes the whole experience, leading up to endgame kind of a joke. I don't think it will be that horrible, but given the way things were described, it could be kind of a slog and kind of a split between this is tedious, why am I doing it, and oh my god, I got to endgame so fast. But again, why would you spend so much time in the initial areas when really the meat and potatoes of your game is, after that? I just don't get it. The simplistic tooltip thingy, they talked about it being kind of right, in that, especially with, Diablo 3, it wasn't really evaluating everything. So instead of giving you something like a green tooltip that definitively tells you this is increasing your damage and toughness, they're giving you a number that if you don't analyze it a little further, it's going to just not be useful at all, or it may end up resulting in less damage. So, like, good example in Diablo 3, if you find like a two-handed weapon and you're dual wielding and you're using the two weapons for, damage multipliers, but this two-handed weapon shows up green on your tooltip to say that it's going to be more damage, that's not the case. Same with like some armors that might drop, but the multiplier may not apply to you, or there might be some stat in Diablo 4 where that loop kind of breaks and you say, well, okay, I don't need this item anymore. Why am I even using it? That sort of thing. They've gone back to the old system of granting resistance penalties as you progress through the zones. So since we only have access to Zone 1, these are not going to be relevant for the beta at all. But apparently, it's basically going to be from Zone 2 to Zone 3, you get minus 20 all res and minus 40 all res from Zone 3 to Zone 4. I can only expect that it's a total of 60, because you're going 4 to 5, and then whatever happens after 5 is your maximum 60% resistance penalty, and you basically have to work your way around that and solve that problem. Already a little better than Diablo 3, but again, the context is the early game. You can get pretty tough in the early game and sort of, not make it very challenging, especially when it's figured out. I almost think it's a lot simpler than they're making it out to be, and they just want to hide it for, effect and give people like a few minutes to really solve that problem. They talked about armor and what the effects of armor are. So they showed us some graphs. They showed us a lot of graphs. There's going to be some stuff in those graphs. So let me just see if this works. Okay. So anyway, the point is that they showed us some stuff. We have kind of a bit of context into what it means, but not really. So what I'm going to do is add another thing here. And just make sure that I can show Photoshop because I chose to save the images there. And it's not showing. Hold on. Remove. Yes. So anyone watching on the video will be able to see what I'm doing. But let's just really? Okay, well, that's not working. Essentially, I wanted to show you some graphs that basically add up to being able to see. Oh, that's what happened. Oh my God. Sorry about this. We're just having some difficulties here. So, it, I guess, hasn't figured out which monitor to capture properly. Okay. But this is really what I wanted to show you. So they showed us some graphs. This is damage reduction contribution per armor. And you can see that there's a sliding scale down here based on your player level. So in the beginning, damage reduction per armor is about 4.5%. So once you get up to level 98, which again, they touched on this a lot with the levels. Once you get to 98, the effectiveness of that armor becomes about 1.5%. I'm going to call it 1.75 because it's just below. They went on to show more graph about damage reduction from expected armor. And they wanted to make a point specifically to say that this is you fighting a monster that's equivalent level to you. So this is, player level and monster level are the same. So they want to say when you have a level 1 player versus level 1 monster, you're going to get about 12.5% damage reduction from armor. And as you go up and fight monsters, your damage reduction is going to scale. And you'll get much more damage reduction from your armor at level 97. They didn't say really if this curve stays consistent based on your level, but they went out of their way to say that if you fight a monster that's higher level than you, which is the next graph, the damage reduction expected from that starts to fall off. And, because they were clear as mud up to now, they didn't really say that the damage reduction cap from armor is actually here at 85%. So if you're level 97, if your attacker is level 97 and you're level, and you're, fighting it with 2000 armor, this monster is way ahead of you, so its damage reduction is going to be way up here. And, as long as you level up, the damage reduction from you to the attacker goes way down at level 97. That's it, right? I explained this correctly. Yes, so if, this is more like the monster resisting your damage. If you're level 1 trying to fight a high level monster, it's got 85% DR to you, and then this slides down. But they're only using an armor value of 200. What they would have done in something like Diablo 2 was used attack rating to gauge your chance to hit that mob, and then also have damage reduction scaling based on you versus the monster. So there were scenarios where, you could kill something that's way higher level than you, maybe, but, it was a very difficult thing to do, took a long time, and that's kind of what we should expect. And this is where I started to think about the fact that they spoke about armor and damage reduction and thought, okay, well, sure, you've shown me this graph about, at the end of the day, say I'm a level 97 character fighting a level 97 attacker. I don't know what my end game armor total is going to be, technically. So based on the damage reduction expected that I showed you, it could be that, if I have 10,000 armor, it's going to mean a very different thing than, having 2,000 armor and trying to fight the same thing. So, even though at 2,000 armor, it went down to about, I guess 5%. Let's say I had 10 times that much armor, so 20,000. That means the damage reduction that the attacker has, compared to my level, I don't know what the long-term effect of that is, right? I guess they are talking about the mob having 2,000 armor. And then, further to that, they're talking about the distribution of armor per level and what kind of damage reduction it gives you. But they didn't, again, give any context into how these numbers really extrapolate. So, in Diablo 3, for example, I could have 20,000 armor easily and get over this particular cap of 85% damage reduction from armor. And it scales and has I guess logarithmically going to a point of very little turns until you have crazy amounts of armor from a gold wrap and a boon of the hoarder, in which case your armor would be out the wazoo, and then you would take, then you would have 99.99999 damage reduction, but not complete damage reduction, because that can't happen. It looks like Diablo 4 is taking a stance against that and saying, well, here's the cap, 85%. That's it, done. Yeah, I can't really emphasize enough that if they're the holders of the answers to all of these questions, showing us these things doesn't really serve too much of a purpose other than just giving me information. Because I don't know what 2,000 armor means. I don't know if I'll find a chest piece with 2,000 armor. And, at that point, these graphs kind of go out the window, because I've now capped out the usefulness of this data. I don't know. So, if I whipped up a calculator and let's say I was, I guess they expect me to get to level 100. So at that point, the effectiveness of the damage reduction is about 17%. So if I have 0.17 times, I guess 20,000 armor, the amount of incoming mitigated damage from a hit would be 17%, right, of physical damage. And then they also went out of their way to say that armor doesn't quite work the same way as it did in Diablo 3. So, armor actually is more of a physical mitigation mechanic more than it is non-physical. And they just spoke about it in those two terms. They used the concept of shadow resistance, which I guess is poison or chaos or same class of damage. But they said that for every chunk of physical damage resistance that you have from armor, say it's 60%, you will always have half of that be non-physical damage reduction. So say you get to 80% or 85, your reduction to non-physical damage will be about 42.5. And then you have to compensate for the rest with resistances. So literally just by getting armor and doing nothing else, and having no information about what the incoming hits are doing, you're already about half defended. If you get, your maximum damage reduction to physical from armor, you're already taking about half the damage from like fire and stuff like that. Which, to me doesn't really make any sense. It's good that they want to make us tougher and all that, but I honestly think they're creating more problems than it's worth. Especially because of all the different styles of defense that are available. Like, they made it clear that Sorceress is going to have energy shield. Druid and Bard will have this like 4 to 5 hour. And Rogue is just going to be good old dodge. So I don't know how effective those mechanics are going to be. They talked about, mobs scaling up to 100. They talked about, like I said earlier, mobs having armor. A lot of the context as to what this armor means, again, was completely left out. I don't know what the fuck any of it means. They talked about how they scale the monster damage reduction compared to the damage you're doing. And the only answer that they seemed to give was that they're going to let you do damage to a point. So you'll be able to kill things, but the pace of the mob damage reduction is always going to be less than you. So there's always going to be a point, assuming that your power picks up at a steady pace and you're not trying to do overleveled content or something like that. They want you to match what you're fighting pretty much, or get past it. So the curves are like, kind of operating in tandem, but mobs are down here and you're up here kind of thing. So you're going to go at sort of a steady pace of that growth. Instead of showing like huge damage numbers, it seems like they want to use this opportunity to, at the end of the day, increase visual clarity and not have a 9 or 12 digit number displaying for your damage. In that case, they want to, have it be something you can understand. Admirable, but if you're doing those calculations anyway, it's a burden on the server. And now you're forcing your game server to do yet another calculation because, sure, you're hitting something for what could be a billion incoming damage to the mob, let's say. But now, again, the calculation of what damage was mitigated by your attacker now has to be taken into effect. So if it mitigated half of that hit, what you're going to see is, 500 million or something like that. And it does bear kind of discussing that because that's pretty important stuff. When you're talking about endgame scaling and what this means for everything else. And, again, what are the damage sources? Is damage over time going to have an impact on this? Is, so many things that come up off the top of my head. That, like, why? I mean, like I said, if you're holding all of this information, it's really easy to get lost in the fact that you may think that there might be a logical leap to understand the rest of it, but you have to remember in your tiny little mind that people don't have this same level of information. And, it showed in the haphazardness of the stream. Oh, maybe you should talk about X and Y since we're on that topic. Maybe, talk about strongholds a little bit. Oh, yes, spoke about armor. Let's talk about how we changed it, kind of thing. Paraphrasing, not exact words. Watch the stream. But, that's kind of what I'm getting at is like, what really do we have here? And the answer at the end of the day is not much. I mean, we have already seen in Diablo 3 that over time the effectiveness of armor is reduced. It's just a diminishing returns mechanic. So, no shit. Obviously, armor in the early game is going to be much more valuable than armor in the end game because I need so much more of it to get to a higher level of damage reduction. So I think that's implied, not worth mentioning. And it's like, I guess the final point to this is like, who did they think their audience is? I don't know. I honestly don't know who this was aimed at. So that's why I'm kind of calling this just information. We got an info dump. We don't know what the end game totals are going to be. We haven't seen any end game weapons. We haven't learned about the sort of relative scaling of anything in the end game. We don't know kind of what's going to happen in any of it. And they like to show their little gameplay clips and demos. And they talked about, oh, it's a low level barbarian. Oh, this is a higher level barbarian. But again, what level is it? Like, what's going on, right? There were no damage numbers showing. There were no indications of what the relative character progression was versus, what's going on in the game. And I feel like that's just so completely disconnected right now that it's hard to say whether there's going to be anything fun to do. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just so frustrating to me that this happens. And I really think Blizzard should change their attitude and, really give us everything. If you want to stress test the server, do something like what happened in Reaper of Souls. Gate the boss. Say, hey, you can do every lick of content right up to the end, but we're going to hide that Lilith fight on you, assuming that's it. And, you're going to love it when you see it because it's going to kick your ass. But, how do you know what bugs are going to be game breaking once you finish zone 1? How do you know if there's anything that's actually working with the resistance penalties as you progress through the game? How do you know that armor is actually working correctly? How do you know that your actual calculations of these damage reduction values are scaling the way you want them to? How do you know that something like Energy Shield is really mitigating that much damage? How does Energy Shield work? Does it disappear in one shot like Ward from Path of Exile? Or does it actually, mitigate some damage? Is there Energy Shield bypass, like with, as they call shadow damage or chaos? Does that affect your life first? Do you have, Fortify that might increase armor effectiveness? But again, what is the effect of that stat? Dodge, again, what is the effect of that stat? We know that in Diablo 3 they took it out and made dexterity equal armor because dodge was just silly and stupid. So for some fucking reason it's back. I like I said, I'm just overflowing with questions that they don't want to seem to answer. And they even memed on us and put up the question of, when will we know about endgame systems? And they said, well, we'll tell you after the beta. Basically, when we're going to ship this game is when you'll know anything that you want to know about it. And for now, we're just going to laugh at you and throw a pie in Rod Ferguson's face and, tell you to buy things like the bullshit an artist statue in the background or whatever. And it's just asinine. Like, I know I'm getting rambly, and I know I've been talking about this for a long time, but what is the point, Blizzard? What the hell is the point? Your players are not idiots. They're people who want to know what the fucking math is. There are people who want to know that you respect their time. There are people that want to know that you can log into this game, play as much as you want, and not have time be the linear focus of, progression, because we don't know that yet. We don't know if, there's going to be a way to be efficient with your time, like in Path of Exile, to trade something, because the trade system is limited. We only have like a sort of weird mutant version of Solo Southbound, which again, I don't agree with at all. I don't think this is the right attitude, especially for a game that's supposed to be friendly to community, friendly to seeing people that you walk around and view. And for some reason, there's a party cap of 4 again. It just screams that they don't really care about really meeting that multiplayer MMO RPG kind of middle ground, and they just want to have you do something tedious. And it's like, that's a real harken back to Diablo 2, where but there was open trading. Like, you could trade for whatever the hell you want, and it doesn't interrupt your gameplay. It just reduces the amount of time that you have to invest in the game to eventually get something, because you get to your goals faster. I don't know why they don't understand this. If you're confused as I am about this, go post to Blizzard and make them answer that question, because really that's what I care about. There's some other drama going on with Blizzard and ABK right now, so look into that separately. But like, come on, come on, Blizzard, give me some information. I'm here as basically a media outlet and a podcaster and, a very occasional streamer, trying to interpret this little like information that you gave me as anything less than bullshit, because, it doesn't mean anything to me when you say, oh yeah, with 2,000 armor, you'll have X amount of damage reduction. Great. Have you seen other ARPGs? Have you seen an MMO lately? One single piece of armor, your chest could have 2,000 armor if you wanted it to. In the e-bugged version of like a high level armor in Diablo 2, you could get near 4,000. So like, what are you telling me? I just, it's silly. It's silly. It's silly, and I don't get it. I really wish we would have actual information, and I really wish they would get out of this silly mentality that they have of just drip feeding us things that don't fucking mean anything. I just don't understand. Okay? I don't. So when we're done this circle jerk of talking about, oh, how pretty does this look? Honestly, it doesn't matter if it's not a good game. Okay? It doesn't matter. And that's the message I want to leave you with. It could look fucking fantastic, but if I don't enjoy it and there's a thinner end game than a piece of damp 8.5 by 11 white paper, then what does it matter? It's just, yeah, I don't know. On to actual games. We have a lot of events happening during the bridge time between the end of Sanctum League and the start of whatever the next league is from Grinding Gear Games. They've given us a list of races. I will just show them briefly. Here's the Ruthless with Gold event. There's some microtransaction prizes that you can look at. I'll leave a link in the description. There's Asynchronous Group SSF, Friendly Fire Group SSF, and then going through the weeks, week 3, Crangled Passives, and then Polarity Group SSF event. So, lots of things to do, lots of information, which, by comparison to Blizzard, that's the kind of information I want, because they're no longer considering themselves the keeper of all the context. They're giving you all the context. It's right there for the taking. You don't have to do any figuring out. It's all there. It's all there and just waiting for you, all in a nicely packaged blog post that says, this is what's going on. And that's all I have to say. I know this was a particularly long episode, but that's it. Blizzard, get your shit together. Because if you don't, you lost everybody. Okay? You lost everyone watching you. If you like the content and you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It does a lot for me. I also have a Patreon. You can subscribe for as low as $1 a month, and you get access to all of the unreleased content, and there's some extra rewards that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it pays. You get things for giving me your $1, and you don't have to sub from Twitch and give Bezos half your money. So you can also follow at the socials below. Yeah, thanks for your time. Thanks for sticking around, and have a good time trying Diablo 4. And we'll just all mold together when we can't figure things out or they don't give us enough information. Peace. That was high energy. That was big. I didn't think I would necessarily be able to go through all of that in a constructive way, but it worked. Yeah, I missed some very minor things that will just be sort of discovered as we go on. But yeah, I think I'm done. Crazy. I like I said, I really wish Blizzard would clean up their act and treat us like humans, but we all know that's not possible at the current moment, so we're stuck dealing with it. Anyway, I'm going to log off. I'll see you in the next one. Hopefully it's sooner than later. Thanks for